What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors sits down for what he thinks is a friendly chat, only to be blindsided by sharp accusations and personal digs? Get ready to witness one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. The studio lights burned bright as Jude Law settled into his chair across from the View panel. Hundreds of interviews had come before, indie dramas, blockbuster hits, but today, something felt different. The energy in the room was tense, almost predatory. "Welcome back to The View," Joy Behar began, her signature smirk in place. "We're here with the incredibly talented Jude Law, here to talk about his new film. But before we get to that, Jude, I have to ask you something that's been bothering me." Jude shifted slightly, keeping his composure. "Of course. Fire away." Joy's voice sharpened. "Your recent comments about American politics, in that Guardian interview, they were quite something. You basically said Americans don't understand nuance when it comes to international affairs. That's pretty condescending, don't you think?" The audience went silent. This wasn't the light entertainment segment anyone expected. Jude's brow lifted slightly. "I'm sorry, Joy, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I never said anything remotely close to that. In fact, I praised American audiences for their sophistication when discussing my latest project." "Oh, come on now," Joy interrupted, waving dismissively. "Don't backtrack. You said, and I quote, that American viewers need everything spelled out for them because they can't handle complex narratives. That is absolutely not what I said." Jude replied firmly, his British accent sharpening as frustration crept in. "I would never make a blanket statement about any audience, especially not American audiences who have supported my work for decades." Joy leaned in, enjoying the confrontation. "So you're saying The Guardian misquoted you? Convenient. Or maybe you just don't want to own up to what you really think about the people buying tickets to your movies." "I'm saying you're misrepresenting my words entirely." Jude shot back, controlled but with steel creeping into his tone. "I spoke about the universal challenges of storytelling across cultures. Nothing more. If you're going to quote me, have the courtesy to quote me accurately." The other panelists exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the scripted segment anyone had anticipated. Joy laughed, without warmth. "That's rich coming from someone who thinks Americans are too stupid to understand your artistic vision. Tell me, Jude, did that drive you to leave Hollywood for a while? Couldn't stand working with all us simple-minded Americans?" Jude's jaw tightened. "I find your line of questioning not only inaccurate, but deliberately inflammatory. I've never expressed anything but respect and gratitude for American audiences and the American film industry. But yes, I did leave Hollywood for a time." Joy pressed further. "Right after a string of box office disappointments, Alfie, All the King's Men, The Holiday, let's be honest, your American career wasn't exactly setting the world on fire." "My career choices," Jude responded evenly, diplomatic training in full effect, "have always been based on the quality of the material and the opportunity to work with talented people. I've been fortunate to work on both sides of the Atlantic, with extraordinary directors and fellow actors." Jude began, measured as ever. Joy smirked. "Very political answer. Very safe. Very British, I suppose. Always so proper, even when you're being criticized." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jude could feel the heat of the lights, but even more so, he could feel the deliberate attempt to corner him into saying something he'd regret. "I prefer to be thoughtful rather than reactive," he said carefully. "Unlike some, I don't believe television gives anyone license to be deliberately hostile to their guests." Joy's eyes flashed. "Hostile? I'm asking legitimate questions. You come on our show, you should expect tough questions. This isn't some fluffy British talk show where everyone pats you on the head." "There's a difference," Jude replied, his voice rising slightly for the first time, "between tough questions and misrepresenting someone's words to manufacture conflict. You've built this entire line of questioning on a false premise." "False premise?" Joy scoffed. "I read the interview myself. You said British actors have to dumb down their performances for American audiences." "That's completely untrue," Jude said, his composure cracking. "I challenge you to produce that quote. It doesn't exist. What you're doing is exactly the kind of gotcha journalism that gives American media a bad reputation. The audience was silent, sensing something unprecedented unfolding. Joy's voice rose to match his. I'm doing my job, holding celebrities accountable. Just because you're used to being treated like royalty doesn't mean you get a free pass. You want to talk about accountability? Jude's voice cut through the studio like steel. Let's start with your accountability to basic journalistic integrity. You've spent the last 5 minutes attacking me over quotes that don't exist. Oh, spare me the lecture, Joy shot back. I've been doing this longer than you've been making movies, sweetheart, and I know deflection when I see it. Deflection. Jude leaned forward, abandoning his usual calm. You want me to defend statements I never made? That's not deflection. That's refusing to participate in your manufactured controversy. Joy laughed harshly. Everything's manufactured with you people, isn't it? The humble British actor routine? The wounded dignity when someone calls you out? Do you think your accent makes you sound smarter than the rest of us? My accent has nothing to do with this conversation, Jude said, his voice tight with controlled anger. What does matter is your apparent inability to conduct a professional interview without resorting to personal attacks and fabricated quotes. Personal attacks. Joy's voice climbed to a near shout. You want a personal attack? Let's talk about your personal life. 3 different women, multiple children with different mothers, but sure, lecture me about professionalism. The studio went utterly silent. Even for The View, this was beyond the line. Jude's face drained of color, then burned red with a mix of shock and fury. You are completely out of line. My family has nothing to do with this. Jude's voice shook with barely contained fury. Oh, really? Joy pressed on mercilessly. You want to talk about American values, about how sophisticated you are. In America, we value family stability. We value men who take responsibility for their actions. How dare you? How dare you drag my children into this? Jude snapped. They have done nothing to deserve being part of your petty attempt to create drama for ratings. Petty. Joy shot back, venom in her tone. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of someone who thinks he's better than us, while his own life is a mess of broken relationships and abandoned commitments. Jude rose abruptly, his microphone teetering. That is enough. I will not sit here and allow you to attack my family on national television. Sit down, Joy commanded, pointing at his chair. You agreed to come on this show. You don't get to storm off just because someone asks you hard questions. Hard questions. Jude's incredulity was palpable. This isn't journalism. This is a public execution. You attack me based on lies, and when I defend myself, you attack my children. I didn't attack your children, Joy said, feigning innocence. I simply pointed out that someone who can't maintain stable relationships maybe shouldn't be criticizing American culture. When exactly did I criticize American culture? Jude demanded, fists clenched at his sides. Show me one quote, one actual statement where I said anything negative about America or Americans. Joy faltered, clearly not expecting such direct confrontation. It was the tone, the implication, the tone. Jude's voice dripped with disbelief. You are destroying my reputation on national television because you didn't like my tone in an interview you didn't even read carefully enough to quote accurately. Your reputation was already questionable, Joy shot back. Jude's anger now filled the studio. What everyone knows is that you've built a career attacking people who can't defend themselves on live television. What everyone knows is that you hide behind the pretense of journalism to justify cruelty. The audience was silent, transfixed. Cruelty. Joy's voice turned mocking. Poor little movie star can't handle a few tough questions. Maybe stick to those British talk shows where they ask about your favorite tea and call it an interview. A few tough questions? Jude's composure had vanished. You started with fabricated quotes, moved to personal attacks about my career, and then brought my children into it. That's not tough questioning. That's character assassination. Character assassination? Joy stood, matching his intensity. You don't have any character to assassinate. You're just another privileged actor who thinks the world owes him respect he hasn't earned. Respect I haven't earned. Jude's voice thundered across the studio. I've worked 30 years in this industry. Never been involved in a scandal. Never attacked a fellow actor. Never used my platform to tear down others the way you're doing right now. Oh, you want to talk about platforms? Joy's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. Let's talk about how you use your platform. Joy shot. Coming to America, taking roles from American actors, then going back to Britain and talking about how unsophisticated we are. That never happened, Jude said through gritted teeth. You are literally making things up as you go along. Am I? Joy reached for some papers on the desk. Because I have the interview right here. Then read it. Jude challenged, his voice cutting through the tension. Read the actual quote you claim exists, word for word, right now, on live television. Joy's hand froze over the papers. The confidence that had carried her through the entire attack flickered, then seemed to evaporate. Well, Jude pressed, voice razor sharp. You've been quoting this interview for the last 10 minutes. Surely you can find the actual words you claim. Joy shuffled through the papers, her movements frantic. The other hosts sat in stunned silence, watching the carefully constructed ambush crumble. It's in here somewhere, she muttered, avoiding eye contact. No, it isn't, Jude said, deadly calm. Because I never said what you're claiming. You built this entire ambush on nothing. I read it myself. Joy insisted weakly, still shuffling papers. Then read it now. Jude demanded, word for word. Show America exactly what I supposedly said that was so offensive it justified this attack on my character and my family. The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. Joy's face flushed. Her usual quick wit was gone. You know what? Jude continued, gaining strength. I'll make it easier for you. I'll tell you exactly what I said in that Guardian interview. I said that storytelling is a universal language that transcends cultural boundaries. I said audiences everywhere, including American audiences, are sophisticated enough to appreciate complex narratives. I praised the American film industry for giving international actors opportunities to work on incredible projects. Joy finally looked up, trapped between defiance and embarrassment. That doesn't sound very offensive, does it? Exactly, Jude said. But somehow you twisted that into me calling Americans stupid and unsophisticated. How does praising American audiences translate into insulting them? The implication was clear, Joy said weakly. The only implication here, Jude's voice rose, is that you decided to destroy someone's reputation on live television without bothering to verify your facts. That's the implication. I don't have to verify anything, Joy snapped, some of her old fire returning. I'm not a court of law.
No, you're not.
Jude agreed. You're something much worse. You're someone with a platform and an audience who chooses to use that power irresponsibly. You attack people knowing they can't adequately defend themselves in this format. Then why did you come on the show? Joy shot back. Because I thought I was coming on a talk show, not a public execution, Jude replied. I thought I was going to discuss my work with professionals, not be ambushed by someone who doesn't understand the difference between actual journalism and tabloid gossip. Tabloid gossip, Jude said firmly, his voice cutting through the studio. This is legitimate television. Joy shot back, shrill now. Legitimate television doesn't attack guests based on fabricated quotes. Jude continued. It doesn't drag someone's children into a professional disagreement. Legitimate television has basic standards of decency. The other hosts squirmed visibly. One finally tried to intervene. Maybe we should move on to the new film, she suggested weakly. Move on. Jude turned to her, incredulous. After your colleague just spent 15 minutes attacking my character and my family based on lies, after she demanded I defend statements I never made. We're just going to move on like nothing happened. You're being overly dramatic. Joy finally found her voice again. Overly dramatic. Jude whirled back to face her. You called my personal life a mess, suggested I'm irresponsible with my children, and claimed I think Americans are stupid, all based on an interview you clearly never read. And I'm being overly dramatic. I'm God. Your personal life is public record, Joy said defensively. My personal life is none of your business, Jude replied sharply. And it has absolutely nothing to do with my work or anything I've ever said publicly. You brought it up purely to hurt and embarrass me. That's what happens when you're a public figure, Joy said with a shrug. No, Jude said firmly. That's what happens when you're interviewed by someone with no professional standards and no basic human decency. Most interviewers understand the difference between legitimate questions and personal attacks. The camera captured every moment as Joy's face cycled through anger, embarrassment, and defiance. "I've been doing this longer than you've been famous," she said desperately. "Then you should know better," Jude replied coldly. "Experience should have taught you basic professionalism. Instead, you've used your years in television to perfect the ambush interview." Joy said, crossing her arms. "If you don't like my questions, there's the door." "Actually," Jude said, calmly removing his microphone, "that's exactly what I'm going to do, because I refuse to participate in whatever this is supposed to be." He stood fully, straightening his jacket with deliberate composure, and addressed the camera directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I came here today to talk about my work and ended up being attacked based on completely fabricated quotes. I hope you'll take a moment to read the Guardian interview she's been referencing. You'll find it says exactly the opposite of what you've been told. I've had the privilege of working with American actors, directors, and crews for decades. They are some of the most talented, dedicated, and professional people I've ever encountered. I would never insult them or their audiences, and I certainly don't appreciate having words put in my mouth for the sake of manufactured controversy." With that, he walked off the set, leaving Joy Behar sitting alone, papers scattered before her, cameras still rolling. The studio remained silent for several long seconds before someone finally called for a commercial break. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Have you ever seen anything like this on daytime television? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable moments like this.